Is there something that you are working with over there? Do you have any answers to this?
So it's not something would you consider Auto-Tune an AI tool?
No, actually, I don't think. I think when I think of artificial intelligence, I think that's an interesting question. Is Auto-Tune? Well, no, because it's a technical, like, I guess what I think of artificial intelligence, I think of when you were sharing your screen and your voice capture was coming in, right? Like,
yeah. So I'm sure there's people that are applying some sort of artificial intelligence either to create the score or just to do certain elements, maybe bring in a bass line or a drum in the background that just is automatically generated. What I have seen is some technologies to determine the mood of the music, the color and the mood of the music, so that you can generate metadata, so you can categorize songs based upon those moods and those colors. So I've seen stuff like that, but to actually generate the songs themselves, yeah, there's people out there just pushing machine learning, data sets and saying, I want a song that sounds like Beethoven, or I want a song that sounds like X. And what you do is you feed them all those songs, this machine, all those songs, and then it just sort of generates lyrics plus music at the same time. I think for me, I think there's some element missing from it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Henry probably thinks something similar. I'm sure he's got some opinions about automatically generated music, but those are the applications that I've seen from an AI perspective when it comes to this.
Great. I listened to it last night, actually, the Eurovision, or the winners of that AI competition.
Interesting. Hey, here's sort of two questions that I think are interesting and on point, and they kind of, I'll read them both, and they kind of come in together. One's from an anonymous attendee, the other one's from Ebony Tay, but it's like a production question for Norman and Henry. It says, are you having to produce music with a more minimalist approach? And then there's a side question is about plugins for creative, and it's sort of what Henry was talking about, plugins. But then another one that kind of works together here is, how can tech be used to create more intimacy between artists and fans? And it goes on a little bit, because this is, it seems like esports games creators have figured this out, providing engaging experiences with their fans. But musicians, not Henry, of course, who's great, says it here, not just me, often seem distant from their fans online. And to address all of this, my son went to the Fortnite game with Travis Scott, and I thought that was absolutely incredible. So I do know what you mean about that engagement. And, interestingly enough, there's two parts happening now. And I do think an artist like Henry has almost like a gravitational pull right now, because people want just the way Henry sings, his voice, and his. I think in music, people are responding more to a little bit almost less produced. Like you said, this is the Ebony Taylor, a little bit more minimalist, because it's a little more honest. And I think without the tech part of it, I do think artists who are a little bit more open right now, maybe vulnerable, are receiving a little bit more attention than I think they had in the past. So, I don't know, that's from my perspective. I don't know, Henry, from your perspective, if you feel like there's any, been a creative shift, or how would you've been doing Facebook Live concerts. Do you feel like you have, you've been obviously working in Europe a lot. How do you feel about that intimacy between, what you've been doing and now your Facebook Live?
Funny enough, I quite like Facebook Live now. I think when you're doing a set anyway, if you kind of get you kind of know what you're going to say between, and in my head, if you can do it, I make up what the audience is saying. So I just sort of pretend they are there, and you can see all the little hearts and the likes, and you can see comments coming in, so you can see people appearing and saying things. You can kind of read it while you're playing, which is dangerous, but you can. And it's a different experience. It's not an audience that you can see in front of you and how they're responding. You don't know whether they're dancing, which is a problem, because you might want to. There's been a few songs I thought I just want to kick it back in, but maybe everyone's sort of bored. So that's the bad side of it. And there is a latency again on the chat, so you can be 20 seconds ahead. So you don't know whether they're dancing, and you've already finished the song by the time you read someone say, hey, we're all dancing here, keep going. And you're like, oh, sorry, I finished, But no, I think it's been great, actually, Facebook Live for me anyway. So yeah, and you've got quite a big audience too, and also you get feedback straight away. People are leaving comments, whereas you can play a gig and everyone leaves, and you go home wondering, well, did they really like it? I don't really know. You know.
And I would say from an audience perspective, I think you get closer to the artist. I mean, we've seen technology sort of start to do that, remove that veil. Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook Live just sort of gets you closer to the artist. And then you have Patreon where you can have closer things. I just did for my daughter's graduation, I just did a cameo. I had somebody come and do a cameo that addressed her directly. So I think there's ways to use technology to bring you closer and closer to your audience and connect in ways that just you couldn't scale them in the past.
I think that's great. Hey, one other thing too. How about another question from Justin King? Henry, can you talk more about your creative process? You want to give us a little insight into just really pure. I guess we'll stop with a little bit of tech for a minute, and just really what is your songwriting process?
So whatever comes out on the guitar or the piano, you just format, craft it. And now my main thing is I do looping. I read that one from Justin. So I've got a loop pedal. I've got the Boss RC300, which is the bigger one. It's a big chunky thing. It messes up your entire foot pedal rack. So I've got foot pedals everywhere now because it's the dominant one. But you can loop in that and then find ways of, you can find harmonies. The vertical side of the music can come in, and that's been really helpful for me. Yeah.
That's great. Two other for the Q&A from Nolan, he and Patty Jones. The other question about what producers are using this technology, and just in terms of Pro Tools, I think a lot. It says are the A-listers using. I think right now the good news is that a lot of people I know, the producer who worked with Adele, with Hello, they're all in Logic. I think most recording studios all use Pro Tools for their tracking, for their sessions. It seems to be the most transferable from larger studios to smaller studios. And then the other question from Nolan was about our cloud solutions accessible to independent artists. And I think, Henry, you could answer that. I mean, you're as an independent artist, how has this cloud experience, been for you overall?
For me, it's actually been great because I haven't got a massive audience like some of the large artists. So it's pushed me out into the world. It's not something I would have done. I wouldn't have done Facebook Live. I hadn't even considered it. I've always just thought I'd just get another gig, go there, find a club in London, play. It's just opened up possibilities of reaching so many more people. So, it was a great thing to have done. Yeah, as well as for us, being able to work on the album long distance. I mean, I started on a 56K modem, and you could barely download a photo. So, the whole thing is just phenomenal. So I think you have to, look at the positives and say it's amazing, but still push the techno guys to solve all those major problems.
Eddie, that's great. I mean, I think the fact that, I think that one of the real takeaways is that as an artist, you are looking at the positives. You are looking at the silver lining of what we're doing, and I think that's great. And tie into the Jeff Mayfield question: does Henry anticipate that these many online shows are now going to fill the void, and will they continue when the venues are safe again? Which kind of leads us into our poll. So, Henry, do you think that that online will fill the void? Are you ready to get right back out? What's your take on sort of your Facebook Lives to your live performance?
The problem with Facebook Live is, one, it's not live. It's a bit like going to a studio, and you need to be in a studio to record properly with that expensive gear, particularly with audio equipment. And Facebook Live is still not live. The sound is okay. I've had to find ways of getting the sound good using various tech, but it's still not live. So I'd really like people to hear it live. There's that. It's just a different thing. The bass comes through you. The drum beat,
That's right.
Which doesn't happen live unless one of my friends has a projector and 5.1 surround sound, and imagine you're getting a pretty good sound from it. But most people are just with their phones or their iPads, so you can't guarantee how they're hearing it. So I'd love to get back to live, but looking at that poll, it looks like people are not comfortable going out to live venues.
Let's go over our results, right? So, are you currently cloud collaborating? Okay, so 65% on the no and 35% yes. So, Elliot, take notes. And then you pay for an online concert. Well, this is interesting. 85% say yes. Like, I actually find that fascinating, and I think that's, bodes well. I mean, it actually goes back to, I think, Jeff Mayfield's question about, filling the void. I think that's a real indicator of, I guess, the market data that people are interested in this. And I think it, ties back into how we started this with this really grim, Goldman Sachs report of 75% of this revenue decline from music revenue from live. And I think I'm really, really encouraged with that number. And then will you be comfortable going out to a live music event? I think 65% no. That doesn't surprise me at all, which is, sobering. It's unfortunate, and it's like, it just gets back to how we started this out, not on a happy note.
But move back to point number 2, and you're like, well, okay, that's okay then.
Well, that's exactly right, Henry. And I think that, as Goldman says, there are headwinds, ahead. We're getting into a tough time. It sounds like, buckle up and ride it out. And of course, we have to put in, question number 4, Rolling Stones or Beatles. I mean, I look at that, 65% with Beatles, 35% with Rolling Stones. So,
same as those people going out to live venues.
I know. I got someone else on one of the comments was like, "That's an impossible question." It's like, sex or drugs? You're gonna have a pool with rock and roll. You're gonna how do you choose? So, thanks, Ned. It is an impossible question, but we had to stump the audience with at least one. So.
Listen, guys, this was just fantastic, and Henry, thanks for sharing your beautiful sound with us today. It's our first live music on Let's Do Lunch. I've been getting emails from people saying, you got to do that again. This is great, and what a great way to wrap up the week. We're going into another weekend. I just want to remind people, stay safe, stay healthy, but also get away from your screens if you can. I know we're all spending a lot of time in these environments and they're great, but it's also good to, if you can get outside, do it and, smell the fresh air, smell the flowers. Elliot, thanks for coming on. Norm, really appreciate it. Henry, once again. Next week, by the way, Henry, maybe you're starting something, but we have on Monday our Business of Streaming show, and we have Sumya Suraman, who is president of BritBox, which is an OTT streaming service that streams British content, and it's really a popular service started by the BBC, I think, or they're at least a partner in it. And so we'll have her on the show on Monday. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, all. Good job, all.